Okay. So we are now going to discuss about the difference between what is a nation, what is a state, is a nation state, and what is a state nation. These are four terms that we are going to discuss in this very short class, not more than 10 slides. Okay, 10 slides. So we are going to discuss this. I'll share the screen. Okay, I hope all of you can see this. The first page, which is state nation or nation state. And this question was asked by Sakshi. So this very normal, natural question that came into the mind of Sakshi when we are discussing about state and discussing about nation was a question of semantics. When we ask a question, see, what is epistemology? Epistemology is the science of knowing, of knowledge. How do you know anything? There are different faculties that you involve when you want to know something. उसी epistemology, उसी art of knowing or art of differentiation is this term called as semantics. Now, what is semantics? Semantics is basically the linguistic and philosophical study of meaning in languages. As we say that every kind of language has some kind of meaning. Like your names have meaning, the language in which you talk has meaning, the words that you use have meanings. So semantics is that branch of study, branch of philosophy, branch of epistemology, which understands the difference between phrases, words, signs, and symbols. So for a normal, natural person who is just, understanding the difference between nation and state, and then immediately the idea of nation state is given. So the question that comes is, the question that we started with was that why do we say nation state and we don't state nation? And it encouraged me to go into the very depth of it to understand ki bhai, a question is not something that you can answer in one or two words or lines, right? So what is it? So her question started from the idea of semantics ki bhai ye aage ek word piche kar diya. One word is ahead, one word is coming back, and in the other context the second word is coming before and the first word is coming in the second degree. So the interplay of words was the question for, but it has a political significance, and these are two different ideas, and we are going to discuss that today. So what is a nation? So before you start understanding what is a nation, I would recommend that you buy this book, which was written in 1983 by Benedict Anderson, called as Imagined Communities: Reflections on the Origin and Spread of Nationalism. So this entire book is about nation, how the idea came, how the printing press played a very strong role. Benedict Anderson died recently. You can see in 2015 he passed away. Very, very famous. Very famous. If you, as a political scientist, are going to talk about the entire structure of nation, or from there go to the structure of state, you cannot do without understanding this book. So for everyone who's you're a student of political science, you're a student of law, philosophy, if you want to study further, you have to go ahead and buy and Imagine Communities and study it, right? Now we come to the definition which we understand it. Ki hai kya? What is it? So what is a nation? So the term nation basically came from this word nasire, right? Which means to be born in a tribe, in a clan, in a family. So I'm talking about this informal group in which you are born, right? It is also said that it is from another term called Naturo, but it means the same thing, that you are born from a clan, tribe, family, right? It is a psycho-cultural concept. Nation is a psycho-cultural concept. What does that mean? It is a cultural understanding. It is a psychological understanding. For example, in our culture, the culture is to, the moment you meet an elder, you touch their feet. It is a cultural reality. You're taught like that. But when you go outside, if you want to touch the feet of others, they'll be like, oh my God, what is happening? Right? What is it? The little things that you follow in your family, informal, it's psychological. Like, for example, in my family, it was completely clearly said that Sunday ko you can't have khichdi because you will become poor. And then my idea is, what is poverty? But I'm just telling you, that is a norm of that family. In the same way, this tribe, this clan, this family which is there, or collection of families which have their own cultural idea, their own psychological idea, their own norms, right? Nation has a base of common ancestry, that your parents, grandparents, all of them same nation, that kind of linear structure is there. And there's a relationship of blood. So again, family relationship. And this is very, very important, because this is how the natural state of human relationships has been, right? It is a relatively large group of people. So when you're talking about at a larger extent, so now I'm talking about Palestine, I'm talking about Kashmir, I'm talking about Kurdistan. What are these? These are not countries, these are not states. These are relatively large groups of people who feel that they belong together to a single virtue or common traits. So the common traits are of what? Language, identity, culture, history, religious rituals. वो सारे इनके nation में together, they come together, right? And they have a common destiny, right? Then you have the idea of a state. A state is always tied to a territory. Matlab, there will be a geography. It is not something which is psychologically in your mind. The state will be mentioned, it will be clear in the map, it will be clear in the entire borders, divisions. It is a political, legal. Other countries also have to recognize that you are a state, right? It is a sovereignty. Sovereignty is that I have complete control over my land. No one can invade it. No one can do it. It is my own domestic policy. So it is my sovereignty, right? There's a ruler, there's a territory. So you have a king, queen, or you have a president, prime minister, right? So you have a territory and you have someone who's controlling through a bureaucracy. Then you have diplomatic recognition, you have passports, you have treaties with other countries. There are rules which are there, there are laws, there are taxes, there are, the policies that you have to follow when you are in that state, right? You also have a currency. So for example, if a foreigner comes to India, they cannot start using, if they want to, they can, but if they're smart, they will convert the money, dollars, into rupee, right? They have to with the Indian rupee if they want to survive in India, right? So for a longer period of time, and because there's an Indian currency over there. And states try to form nations within their borders. So ये last meaning क्या है? I will discuss. यहीं पे आ गया है confusion. This is the confusing thing. But states try to form nations within their borders is what? I will tell you what it is. But state is what? It has territory. It is a political legal concept. It is having sovereignty. It has diplomatic recognition. Passports hain, treaties hain. There's a territory. There's law order. There's police. There's army. The taxes. You get citizenship. All of that is a state, right? You have borders and all of that. Now the two questions basically start the entire idea or debate with. The first question is, can a state exist without a nation? जरूरी है कि nation and state are they same things? The answer is no. A state is different from a nation. But can you have a state which can exist without a nation? The answer is yes. Look at Iraq. When Iraq was invaded by US in 2003, Saddam Hussein was given death, the capital punishment and all of that. Then the cohesive population, which was Shia, Sunni, or whatever, was changed. The people who were literally living in Iraq started going out of Iraq as refugees, and they stopped, because Iraq was in a conflict. Then you also had ISIS over there and so many. So it has always been a state of conflict. So the normal people, the tribes, the families that lived in Iraq, many died, many left. So now if you look at Iraq in the geography, it is a state. But is it a nation now? Is there some kind of Iraqi nationalism that can happen right now after the American invasion, after the so-called democracy promotion stunt of US? No. The same case with Libya, the same case with any war-torn country, many of the African countries, right? They have a state, like okay, they'll have a president, prime minister, border, passport, currency, all of that. But do they have the same people, tribes, common ancestry, blood relation, culture, all of that anymore? No. Can a nation exist without a state? Yes. Look at Kashmir. Look at Palestine. Look at Kurdistan. These are what? A very large number of people coming together in groups and wanting their own independence because they believe that they have been either occupied or they have been in administration. Like, for example, in the case of Palestine, that it is completely under Israeli occupation. If you go to Palestine, first, it is very difficult to go. If you go to Palestine, crossing so many borders, you go over there, they don't have a currency, you use the Israeli currency. There's no idea of there's a Palestinian passport, but you can't use it until and unless you have the Israeli permit. Right? So there are so many limitations, but the nation is still there, even though in the geography it will not be called as a state. So what came first, nations or state? Pehle kya aaya? Did nation come naturally before or the states came before? So there's one part of thought which says that in European countries, nation came first. Just for example, what you know as Italy right now was some part of it was under Sicily, some part of it was under Austria, Habsburg Empire, some part of it was under the papacy, or Roman Catholic Church. There was nothing so called as Italy, right? When Angels was born in at that point of time, 1820s and all of that. There was nothing called as Belgium. Belgium was formed after 1830. So in 1848, when this entire revolution happened, when Netherlands was given this representative democracy, or Denmark was created, and all that what happened, what started happening was there was this idea that we should have a state. We should not have, because usse pehle kya tha? You had Ottoman Empire, Roman Empire, Austria Habsburg, or the French Empire, or Russian Empire, or Qing dynasty. These dynasties or empires were controlling countries. There were no states. Right. So there's one part of thought which is that in European countries, nation came first. In developing countries, state is making the nation. What it means, I'll tell you later, because the surprise is going to come here. So what is a nation state? What is a nation state? First definition, it is a political sovereignty. So a group of family, tribes, clans, villages coming together, and they become politically sovereign. That is, they have their own domestic policy, their own border, state, all of that. That is nation state. Weber famously described how French leaders in the wake of the revolution transformed peasants into Frenchmen. So when in 1789, when the French Revolution was taking place, right? When there was this, National Assembly, Legislative Assembly, eventually you'll have Napoleon Bonaparte. When there was this entire the Versailles Palace was stormed over, Bastille prison was stormed over. What was, these were peasants. Their identity was of a peasant. They were not thinking of themselves as French. They became French. But at that point of time, their main identity was being a peasant and revolting against King Louis, whatever, 14, 15, 16, whatever. Right? So they were turned into Frenchmen. They became Frenchmen. Right? And that idea of France came later. The national identity came later. What is a nation state insisting on? It insists on alignment between the boundaries of the nation and the state. So, matlab, in one state, you will at least have one nation, and that complete one nation, right? And is it always necessary that the boundaries of nation and state are same? Or is nation state always necessary? So a lot of political philosophers will say that nation state is a utopia. They will say that it is a utopia, right? Because ho hi nahi sakta, with so much of diversity, it cannot happen that in one state you have just one. In talking about Europe's civilizational unease, so Europe always had this unease or this kind of lack of understanding or lack of comfort with the idea of diversity. Abhi Brexit, look at Brexit. What is it? We don't want so many outsiders. So much of more outsiders means more diversity. So the idea is what? That Europe's civilizational unease with diversities has had a long history. Starting even before the Treaty of Westphalia, we'll come to that. But during the 19th century, nation states were an attempt to settle this unease. That, okay, we'll start having borders, citizens, states, presidents, prime ministers, structures, passports, currencies. But if you look at the European map, if you look at it very closely, you will see that they had natural borders. As in, their borders are not constructed man-made. They'll be rivers, waterfalls, and they'll become borders. So it was easier comparatively to have states in that structure. In India, there's no waterfall between India and Pakistan, right? Or Bangladesh. These are man-made imperial borders. So in Europe, it was easier to create this nation state idea where every state will have just one nation and that is it. A nation state is also the idea of a homogeneous nation governed by its own sovereign state. So here when I say sovereign state, I mean its own sovereign bureaucracy, where each state contains one nation. So France is made of French, Germany is made of Germans. This idea is never almost achieved because there's so much of what do you say, multiple identities, multiple diversities, languages. When you study into the very detail of language and the politics of language, languages are also political, you know. So there has been this entire, so what is the hierarchy of language? You have a language which is spoken in your family, then you have a language spoken in your tribe or clan or village, then you have a language which is spoken by your state, then you have a language which is state here means your federal state. Like say if you are born in UP, then there will be a language which is spoken in UP, but it might not be the language spoken in your family because there are so many other mother tongue languages. Then you have a language which is English or Hindi, which is of the state level, which is of the country level, right? So slowly and slowly, what starts happening is the mother tongue languages are getting, or the other vernaculars are not getting archived properly. Slowly and slowly, with generations, people choose speaking or learning more about Hindi or English or other, Marathi or Telugu or what of that. So languages also die. Right. Period of time. How many of us speak Sanskrit? Right. So the entire point which I'm trying to say is that nation state can also be said as a utopia. It never almost happens ki acha. There will be diversity, there will be multiple identities of cultures and languages and people. Right. Here, what does it nation state actually then mean is that one people, one government, one territory. From where the idea of nationalism comes. Right. Nationalism is different than patriotic fervor. What is the difference between patriotism and nationalism? Nationalism is constructed through flags, through textbooks, through history books, through cultures, through statues. Patriotism is something which you naturally feel for your country, right? You don't have to construct it, right? You don't have to read a book on Indian history or any other country history to feel patriotic towards it, right? So nation state is one people, one government, one territory. So here you will say ki India, how does India fit? We'll come to that. Nation state has become the paramount expression of sovereignty, right? The very famous historian Eric Hobsbawm says the entire idea that we talked about before, that the French state preceded the formation of French people. That because first the French Revolution took place. The French Revolution was took place by the peasants who wanted, then they had National Assembly, Legislative Assembly eventually, and it went on for 10 years, right? Then there was the idea of France as we see France today. So what basically Eric Hobsbawm is saying, कि French state pehle aaya, the state came before, the currency, culture, all of that came before. And then the idea that, oh, look, we are French, right? Hobsbawm also says that state made the French nation, not French nationalism, which emerged as the end of the 19th century, the time of Dreyfus Affair. So what is the Dreyfus Affair? Yahan pe? Dreyfus Affair was basically that there was this, so if you see Europe, you have, say, Germany, Italy, France, Belgium, all these countries, right? That is their idea, their identity, and religion comes later because most of them are either Protestant or Catholic, whatever. So what happened in Dreyfus Affair was there was this Jewish military person. The Jewish military person was caught in a certain kind of treason in the French army. There was a Jew who was caught in treason in the French army, and there was a court proceeding. When the court proceeding was going on, everyone who was there in the court, and this is happening in France, the place of enlightenment, the place of, liberty, equality, fraternity. So when this court proceeding is taking place, everyone started chanting the name of the guy, the person who was caught for treason. Eventually, it was found out that he was not involved in it, but Dreyfus is the name of the person. Everyone who was there in this court started chanting, "Death be on the Jew. Death be on the Jew. The Jew should die." So there was this idea that he is Jewish, he is not French. It is a very different, you can be Jewish if you're French, because one is your ethnicity, the other is your religion. Right? But then they saw him as an outsider. The root cause when the idea of Israel started. There was a journalist who was sitting there in that court proceeding, and he was also a Jew, and then he felt felt that if this can happen in France, what will happen to Jews in Europe? We need to go back to our own holy land, right? So this idea that this person is not French, that was created, that was nationalism. When Hitler came, German nationalism, Nazi, Mussolini, fascism, again, state nationalism, orchestrated. So this idea of nation started becoming more and more and more prominent. At the time of 1789 French Revolution, only half of the French people spoke some French. There were different languages, there were different villages, different kinds of class structures of peasants. Obviously, they'll have different language. Not all of them will speak French. And 12 and 13% spoke the version of it that was found to be literature and in educational facilities. But today, if you go to France, today you will speak in the French that at that point of time, only 10% or very small minority spoke, right? So here it is telling you that how nation is creating its own nationalism. Nationalism is also of different kinds. We'll discuss that. There's one kind of nationalism which is formative nationalism, when you form the nation. There's another nationalism which is toxic and which wants to destroy other nations for it to become stronger. That is prestige nationalism. So what you're seeing through Trump, you're seeing through Boris Johnson, it is a prestige nationalism. There's a difference between the nationalistic ideology and nationalistic movement. Nationalistic ideology is something a part of you. Movement is when you want to increase it through action. So you will have wars, what China is doing right now, taking over Ladakh or whatever. So that is what nationalistic movement. When it becomes very intense, it is then called as ultra nationalism, right? So here we will study what is the chronology of nation state and all that definitions. So first understand that in Europe, they were basically empires before. In medieval Europe, they were empires like Austrian, Russian, Spanish, Ottoman, British. These were empires. There was no country, state, nation as such. These were just empires which were there. Now comes the second stage. And in these empires, you have kings, emperors, monarchs, all of that. Okay. The second stage comes is that there are many languages now and many ethnicities. Obviously, because look at, British Empire was till in like came to South Asia also. So imagine the island itself, how much would be. In the same way, Russian Empire, in the same way, Ottoman Empire, right? So they'll have so many. Today, you have Romania and you have many other countries which fought against the Russian Empire. They fought against the Ottoman Empire, right? So there were so many languages, there were so many ethnicities, and there were ruling dynasties. And these it was not necessary that if there's a dynasty which is ruling you, it will be from the clan or tribe, whatever from which you are. Might not be, right? Say, for example, over Egypt also there was Ottoman Empire, or even in Europe, Ottoman Empire went ahead. But they were Arabs, they were Muslims, right? So in 1648, you had the Treaty of Westphalia, which ended 30 years of war in the Roman Catholic Europe, and gave the idea of sovereignty. But the idea of state was not given by it. You had the idea of sovereignty, which is like this is your land and you control over it. You can be anything. You can be a kingdom, you can be a monarchy, you can be anything. Treaty of Westphalia is technically not actually talking about states. It is talking mostly about sovereignty. So what happened? What suddenly happened that you had the idea of state and country and culture and currency and all of that? Because we are always talking about currency related to capitalism and all of that. So what happened is that Adam Smith wrote the book in 1776. By 1790, 1795, 1800, you had Industrial Revolution. At the same time, you're also having the starting of capitalism. all of that all of that started mixing with cartography, which is the science of making maps. So your capital coincided with cartography, which is the science of making maps, to then decide that how maps would be made. Colonialism is also one of the pivotal players in this nexus, obviously, but capitalism was also involved in it. Private property came over, right? And this is how you had the idea of state coming over. In 1789, you had the French Revolution. Napoleon was the end product of the French Revolution. The idea of the French Empire also created this reactionary idea of nationalism, that no, we don't want to be under the French Empire. So we will defeat him in the Battle of Waterloo. So here we understand that nationalism is an ideology, which is a state of mind psychologically, which I told you about. It also has some myth. So your nation might also have a myth that some gods, goddesses, oral folklore, rituals, right? And the difference between formative and prestige nationalism, I told you about that, how, formative nationalism is when you're trying to carve out a nation, and then prestige nationalism is when you want to be dictatorial and take over the other neighboring conditions and other neighboring territories also. In 1848, we studied about when Angels was a part of it, when the revolutions in Europe started. After those revolutions only, you had the idea of like Italy and Germany the way you see it now. It was not there before. Romania, Hungary, Poland, they fought against the Ottoman Empire and the Russian Empire. And then in 1861 to 1865, you will have the American Civil War. After that, you will have the United States of America. It took war to create this United States of America. When Abraham Lincoln come up and give his Gettysburg Address and say that, democracy is for the people, of the people, by the people. Massive bloodshed took place, right? The southern states and the northern states, the entire debate between the Confederacy and the Union and all of that. So it created a certain different kind of federal structure, right? This is the structure in which we have understood nations and how states are formed. So this particular table will tell you, this chronology will tell you that nation came before and state came later. But the exception is what? French Revolution. First French Revolution took place, and then people started understanding that yes, we are French, right? Now we come to state nation. So state nation is a concept. It is a concept, we didn't know about it. The concept of state nation was given by Mustafa Rajai and Cynthia H. Inloy in 1969. And the famous Indian who has spoken about state nation, written a lot about it in UN also, in his own democratic theory, is Yogendra Yadav. And I hope all of you know who Yogendra Yadav is. So he uses this term of state nation very regularly. And along with him, there are other philosophers like Joan Linz and Alfred Stephen. So what is it? So state nation is a concept. It is again a political legal concept, right? What started happening after in countries which were colonized, say India, Pakistan, Afghanistan, Egypt, Middle Eastern countries, Iran, all these countries which were colonized, when they got their independence, they got a name that, okay, from today it is India, or from today it is Pakistan, right? But did all the Indians and all the Pakistanis know that what does it mean to be an Indian? It happened slowly and slowly. The cultural was created. The culture was, you had debates over language, you had debates over so many constitution, you have debates over fundamental rights, many things, the name of streets, the name of cities, the way you're able to understand yourself. Because before 1947, you were a colony, and that's it. It was a British colony in South Asia. You can call it Hindustan, Bharat, whatever, but it was a colony. In 1947, Pakistan, India, all of them got liberated. They got their independence, right? When they got their independence, the name was India. Then there was a constitution. Then there was a currency. Then there were laws. Then there were taxation. Then policies. Many other things happened. But what it means to be an Indian, you will come, it is a culture that you will live in after 1947, right? So the state comes before, and the nation is created later. The idea of India is after 1947. They have it because they wanted it, but legally, I'm talking about political legal concept. The maps, borders, all of that after 1947. Same with Pakistan, same with any post-colonial country which got independence from the colonial powers. So what is state nation? Political independence necessarily involves demarcation of territorial boundaries and the subjection of given people to a single government. That there are many states, many union territories, and you have one government. That is a state nation. Common administrative structure. So you have UPSC. Anyone from any part of the country can write. A common education system. So you have NCERT, UGC, MHRD. A common body of law. So you have the High Court, Supreme Court. You have the Indian Penal Code. A common language. That is a debate again. National language, official language. But Hindi is there. A common communication. So you have Doordarshan, you have All India Radio, you have television, you have public service broadcasting. Just like in UK, you have BBC. There's multiplicity of imagined communities. So there's not one India. So if you read Arvind Adiga's book, The White Tiger, he talks about two Indias. That one is the urban India, the other is the rural India. But what basically Yogendra Yadav, Stephen and Linz are saying, that there are multiple Indias, there are multiple imaginations within one construction of India. And they coexist with each other under democracy, right? It recognizes that citizens have multiple overlapping identities. So I can be a Hindu and I can also be Bihari, right? I can be a Muslim and I can be a Bihari. Multiple identities. I can be a woman also, then I can have a different orientation. I can be from a different caste also, from a different structure, sect. multiple overlapping identities that need not detract from a larger sense of national unity. So irrespective of where I come from, what is my tribe, clan, village, I'm also Indian, right? One identity of ethnicity, one identity of all these fluid identities, then the language you speak, your gender, all of that, the binary that we live in, right? So this is something Yogendra Yadav also talks about, and he says that this debate takes us back to the ghost of John Strachey. He was a British colonial administrator, so something like an IAS officer during the time of the colonialization of India. He wrote a book in 1888 called as India, right? Census was taking place and many things were happening, right? 1857, the revolt had taken place, which they would call as mutiny. And then there was this entire, like the capital, people, structure, culture. It's so difficult to understand because there's so many multiple identities. So he said that the first and foremost, the most essential thing to learn about India, and he advised all the other Brits who were working with him, is that there is not and never was one India, or even a country like India possessing according to European ideas. So he's not being Orientalist in this way. He's saying that the idea of a European state that we have, India did not exist in that way, right? Any sort of unity, physical, political, social, or religious, was not there. That men of Punjab, Bengal, Northwest Frontier Province, Madras should ever feel that they belong to one nation is impossible. Because there were different kingdoms at that point of time, remember? So there was this no overlapping idea of a greater India or something, a greater territory. I don't know if you watched Mahabharata, in the end of the episode when Krishna is basically the curse that Dwarka is going to go underwater, and he will suffer the same kind of bloodshed and violence in his own territory, like it happened for the Kauravas and Pandavas in Kurukshetra, right? So when Krishna is asked at that point of time that what is the future, of because he's not just talking about now Kauravas and Pandavas. So the question he answers is that there'll be something called as Bharat, which will be territorial, which will be beyond Dwarka and beyond the territories of Kurukshetra, territories of Pandavas and Kauravas and Shakuni and all of that. It will be beyond it. It will be larger. So he gives the idea of state in the end of Mahabharata, if you want to look at it in the form of mythology. What I'm trying to say is that this idea that there would be, because if you remember, there was in Hyderabad, Kashmir, there were instruments of accession that were signed. It was not easy to create this geography of India. So what Yogendra Yadav is saying, that India is a state nation. It is not a nation state. We have understood that nation state might be a utopia, and state nation is something, a post-colonial country like India, or any country which got its independence after 1940s, when the colonialism was suffering. It can be under French colonialism or Italian colonialism, any kind of colonialism. So those countries that had been formed at that point of time, like India, those countries, the state was formed before, the nation was formed later. And those countries are called as state nations. So I hope that I'm able to clarify this. In case if anyone is not able to understand, if something which I'm not able to properly explain, you can always get back to me. And that's it. This is the difference. A nation state is a Western construct, a state nation is a Eastern construct.